Coming up on this episode of Heal Squad.
And do we really want to live to 100?
The answer to your question lies in what are you going to do between now and then? It's type 2 diabetes, 100% avoidable. 95% of cardiovascular disease, avoidable. 40% of cancers, avoidable. And we see that in blue zones populations. Beans, corn tortillas, and squash. That's arguably the best diet the human species has ever invented.
Corn tortillas are good for you? I thought corn was bad, period. It's much bigger than just food. Social connection was one of the biggest things. Before we get into that, there's one longevity secret that blew my mind. And that was... So, Dan, you were on the show a while back, and ever since, longevity has become quite the buzzword. And I'm wondering... there's so many different things, whether it's cold plunges, people are doing peptides and all these things. But what do you think people are getting wrong with this longevity trend? And is it just a trend? I don't know.
A few things. And first of all, it's not their fault because we're kind of relentlessly marketed these ideas that are good business plans, but not going to help us live any longer. And number two, there's nothing there's no short-term fix. There's nothing you can do this week, this month, or even this year that will have any discernible bearing on whether or not you're alive and healthy in 2030. When you identify populations of people who are actually living longer, making it to 100 at rates 10 to 15 times the rate we do in America, it's not the result of a peptide or a stem cell or any other quote-unquote longevity hack. It's the result of making small, better decisions every day for decades. That's what works. So if you really want to live longer, trying to change your behavior or spend money or order something off the internet to live on, it's a fool's errand. The secret is shaping your environment so that the healthy choice is the easy choice, and the unhealthy things, and we know what most of them are, I could tick those off, are harder, more expensive, or less convenient. That's what works.
I love that. There was a video on Instagram where you answered a question saying if you want to live longer, don't have habits, but to shape your environment or move to an environment where healthy choices are easy. Can you explain to everybody what you mean by that?
Habits are well-intentioned. We're recording now on January 8th, about a week into when some 80 million Americans make a New Year's resolution. Within another week, about 50% of those will have failed, and in a month, 90% will fail. We make intentions, and we say we're going to change our habits. The problem is our minds, the human brain is wired for novelty, and we're constantly looking for the new thing. And the idea that we're going to have the presence of mind to do the right thing, to get that exercise or to take that supplement or to eat in a certain way for long enough to make a difference is just not going to happen. And even if we had the presence of mind, we get distracted. We run out of discipline. And if you look at the research on the duration of diets and exercise plans and supplement taking, they all have a half-life of about 6 months. So when you go to these blue zones, these areas around the world that I discovered and identified where people have a life expectancy at age 60 of about 10 years greater than we do in the United States, and are about a fifth as likely to fall prey to cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, prostate cancer than we are in America, they're not trying to do anything. They're not running down to Central America for stem cells or getting peptides. They're eating largely a peasant diet, despite our new food pyramid, which is meat heavy, and quote-unquote animal protein heavy. When you actually look at the diets of people who manifestly achieve the outcomes we want, they're eating mostly complex carbohydrates, tubers, whole grains, nuts, and beans. they do eat animal protein, but it's about once a week. It's a celebratory food. So I don't know where we get this idea that protein loading is somehow going to make us live longer. There's no population on the planet in the history of the world that had a high protein diet that had a life expectancy of greater than 65. So I don't know how we're going to turn that tide magically, other than, of course, the beef industry telling us differently. But so what we're marketing and what's real is there's a pretty vast disparity.
I am sitting here thinking about how many people have said you need to eat all this protein, and as you were talking about it, it makes so much sense. I mean, the dairy and the meat industries, they do market so much, and they control the narrative.
They're at the forefront of telling us to eat more dairy and meat, and they fund a lot of research that for questionable scientists or scientists who have conflicts of interest to tell us that. But so my remarks are not a matter of personal opinion. I work for National Geographic. I went into this work with I was actually looking for something else. I was hoping to kind of emerge with a compound that might explain longevity. That would have been a lot sexier. But what I found that if you look at dietary surveys, so dietary surveys capture what a population is eating at a point in time. So we went to Sardinia, Okinawa, Nicoya, Costa Rica, among the Seventh-day Adventists, and Ikaria, Greece, these blue zones. We didn't just look at what people are eating today or ask a 100-year-old what they had for breakfast, which most journalists do. Yeah, they ate eggs and a shot of whiskey, and I live a long time. No. We aggregated 155 dietary surveys that dated back to 1925, done every decade in all 5 blue zones, and Harvard's Walter Willett helped us average them. And when you get a worldwide average of what people have who've reached to age 100 and what they've eaten over time, it's very consistent. It's about 90% whole plant-based food. The 5 pillars of every longevity diet in the world are whole grains. I emphasize whole grains because it's not a piece of white bread. It's whole wheat sourdough bread. It's sweet potatoes. Okinawa, the majority caloric intake until the 70s among the longest lived women were purple sweet potatoes. It's a cup of beans a day. That's where people get their protein in the blue zones. Not sexy, no profit margin on those beans. Americans are kind of challenged in making beans taste good. People in blue zones are very good at making beans taste good. But that's where they're getting their protein. And by the way, as a byproduct, with every cup of beans they eat a day, they're getting half of their fiber demands, which Americans almost completely overlook. And what drives a healthy gut is feeding our microbiome the food they eat, which is fiber. And we don't get that from hamburgers, French fries, or tomahawk steak, or 6 eggs. We get it from eating mostly things like beans and grains and tubers.
There's so many people, though, that come out and say beans are terrible for us, that they have, what's that property in them that they say?
It's lectin.
Lectin, yeah.
Yeah, that myth originates with a very good marketer, and I have to say he's also a friend, Dr. Gundry. Dr. Gundry, do beans have lectin? Yes, they have lectin. A lot of lectin, and if you take a bunch of raw kidney beans, and I don't mean cooked out of a can, I mean dried, hard kidney beans, and you crunch them between your teeth, you're going to get sick. But what Dr. Gundry omits, conveniently, is number one, if you cook those beans for more than 10 minutes, all the lectins are neutralized. Are neutralized. And also, conveniently enough, Dr. Gundry's, if you go to his website, he sells an anti-lectin supplement. So, a clever marketer is going to tell you certain compounds in foods are present and bad for you, and I got the pill that's going to neutralize it. No, you look at human beings in Mesoamerica for at least 7,000 years have subsisted largely off of beans, corn tortillas, and squash. They call that the three sisters. It's arguably the best diet the human species has ever invented. It's
Corn tortillas are good for you?
absolutely.
I thought corn was bad, period.
Well, 70% of the diet, and you look at life expectancy in Costa Rica, specifically Nicoya, Costa Rica. They have the lowest rate of middle-age mortality in the world. They spend 1/15 the amount we do on healthcare. 70% of their diet, until about the year 2010, was corn tortillas, squash, and not much was squash, and beans. And to this day, people are eating corn tortillas. Now, to your point, Maria, if you're eating some highly processed corn tortilla, you're in trouble. But the classic corn tortilla, the cheapest, and you can get these at Trader Joe, all it is corn, whole grain corn, ground up, one ingredient. And humans have been eating it for 7,000 years. And to this day, it is the cornerstone of the longest lived people in the world. Now, I'm not a South Beach diet, and I'm not one of these longevity hackers that wants to sell you a program. I don't care what you eat. You can eat whatever you want. But I will tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that people are manifestly getting the healthy years we want. They're eating in Costa Rica and many other parts of Central America. Cornerstone of their diet is a stone ground corn tortilla.
So my dad grew up in Greece in a village, and my mom too, and they ate meat once a month maybe. They couldn't afford it.
There you go.
And they ate beans all the time and bread. And so I have a 2-year-old, and my dad's like, Maria, bread is good for her. I'm like, Dad, no, bread is not good for her. Our bread is not good.
I bet your grandma's bread is good for her.
Yeah. So
very
it's
different.
interesting to think of all the things, if we really boil it down, like you said, to marketing, it's so crazy because they've made us fear so many things. And I look at my dad, and he's 81, Dan, and that man is fixing roofs in the middle of winter, in the dead of summer with the heat. He can outwork, outrun, outdo anyone of any age at 81.
Well, that reminds me in that scene in Harry Met Sally. I want what he has. I mean, so Ikaria, Greece, is one of the blue zones. This is the place where people live about 10 years longer. Now, the devil's in the detail. Is going to a grocery store and buying a loaf of bread healthy for you here? No. But the way the Greek Icarians make it, it is a slow rise sourdough bread where ambient bacteria are leavening the bread. It's very different than an industrial yeast. They're slowly converting the glutens and other proteins into complex carbohydrates. So when you eat a piece of Icarian or Greek bread, traditional bread, that has about 1/50th of the protein, of the gluten of a normal white bread in the United States, and it actually lowers the glycemic load of your entire meal by some 20 to 25%. So you go from a net negative, i.e. the American bread, to a net positive, the Greek bread, and over 40, 50, 80 years of life, like your dad, it's the difference between sitting in a wheelchair and chopping wood. And again, the marketers tell us there's a short-term fix. There's not. It's doing the right thing every day for long enough and avoiding the wrong thing, small things, for long enough so that we don't develop these avoidable diseases. Type 2 diabetes, 100% avoidable. 95% of cardiovascular disease, avoidable. 40% of cancers, avoidable. Most of dementia, avoidable. And we see that in blue zones populations. And then you map, well, what are they doing with their life? And the answer is very clear. And there's not a lot of profit in it. It's not what the politicians are telling us. It's not what the marketers are telling us, but it works with real people in real populations.
Which, when you say the devil is in the detail, it's much bigger than just food. It's the social. And that was something that our first episode really stuck out for me and made me realize that that was something I was really missing, because I was work. And I thought I was getting my social through my work. And then I realized, oh, no, I've been starving for that real connection that has nothing to do with what I have to offer someone or what work we're doing together. It's just real, connection. So when I started kind of living bi-coastally here in Connecticut, I started doing a happy hour on Wednesday nights, and whoever wanted to come could come, and we would have oysters, which was a good thing, and a little bit of red wine, which I think is still a good thing. And we'd have so much fun, and we got to do something that was pure fun. And I think that when you look at what you've done and the research you've done, social connection was one of the biggest things.
It is a big thing. Marketers want to sell you a thing, but the reality is that living a long time is a cluster. It's an interrelated network of mutually supporting factors that help keeping you do the right things. So the diet that I spoke of, largely whole food, plant-based, being socially connected, waking up in the morning with a sense of purpose, very important. Even if you're super connected and have great happy hours, but if you're existentially stressed out all day long because you don't know what you're doing with yourself or you hate your job, that's a problem. Also, living in an unclean environment, and then the other one is physical activity. We don't need to be a Peter Attia pumping iron person to make it to 100, but you do need to be moving 30 to 45 minutes a day. For most Americans, only about 10% of Americans get that amount of physical activity. For most Americans, that's simply living in a neighborhood where it's easy to walk to get your cup of coffee in the morning. Yeah, you walk your kids to school. Your kids are at least able to walk to school. Maybe you can walk to work. That represents more physical activity than most Americans get. And I like to see us get to that level. So it's all interconnected. You don't want to focus on one thing. I eat the perfect diet, but for the rest of the day, I sit home and watch reruns of Leave It to Beaver with my friends. That's not going to get you where you want to be.
And do we really want to live to 100? What is the appeal to living to 100?
Well, I would ask your dad if he wants to live to 100. I mean, if you asked a 16-year-old if they want to live to 81, they're going to say no, for the most part. Mm-hmm. At least they're not going to look forward to it. But the reality is, age and happiness are in a U-shaped curve. People don't realize this, but your least happy year of your life for an average American is 55. And happiness continues to rise, especially if you keep your health. And it's within all of our grasp. Yes, bad things happen to people. But for the vast majority of Americans, if you do everything right, you should be able to make it to a healthy age, 92 or 93, and figuring a year to year and a half of disability. That's if you do anything right. Now, if you eat the standard American diet, smoke cigarettes, and get the average amount of physical activity, which is less than 20 minutes, your healthy life expectancy is about 65. And you can expect a slow, disability-laden death taking somewhere around 8 years. The difference is vast. So the answer to your question lies in, well, what are you going to do between now and then? But I'm telling you, everybody listening to us right now, Maria, if they have an average set of genes, and what are you, 40 or something? 35?
47.
37?
47.
Okay, I see you. You look 37.
Thank you.
Must be eating your beans.
I do. My dad makes a lot of bean soups.
47. So if you remain socially connected, if you eat a largely whole food, plant slant diet. If you wake up every morning like you seem to wake up to, full of vigor and on fire to help heal your community, if you live in a clean place and you're moving about 45 minutes a day, and you have an average set of genes, you should make it to your, well, right now it's mid-90s. There's likely to have some innovation that comes on board that could give us another 8-10 years. You should make it to 100, and they should be mostly good years. Now, I know you have some health issues that you've grappled with that probably came from things outside of your control, and nobody can control for that. But I'm just saying, if you're an average set of genes, that's the value proposition from the blue zones, quite honestly. And I've written books. I have we haven't talked about it, but I did a 3-time Emmy Award-winning documentary on Netflix called Live to 100, where I chronicle this very clearly. And I have 5 New York Times best-selling books. They're all called Blue Zones. And you can read more about this. I work for National Geographic. The fact checkers are in the corner office. We just had a great article in the Gerontologist this week that now triply confirms the validity of my work, which felt good after 25 years of doing it. And we're now in grocery stores with the Blue Zone Kitchen, frozen food formulated for longevity, maniacally delicious. It's the best-selling whole food, plant-based frozen meals in America. So there are resources.
That's amazing. I have your book, your newest book right here, One Pot Meals.
There you go.
That I'm excited to jump into. But before we get into that, there's one longevity secret that blew my mind, and that was going to church every week. Will you tell everybody about that?
You have to think of these longevity secrets as stacking the deck in favor of happiness. It's not a guarantee, but we know that people who go to church, temple, or mosque at least 4 times a month are living 4 to 14 years longer than people who don't. And we don't know if that's because churchgoers have a healthy weekly routine where they downshift, or if it's because churchgoers have a slightly better community. There's a kind of automatic social community for shy people if you go to church, or if you're less likely to get involved in drugs or other unhealthy activities because you're following the commandments, or if you're praying for health, somebody or something is listening. We don't know. Nobody knows. We just know that when you follow several 100,000 people who go to church and control for everything else, and follow several 100,000 people who don't go to church, the churchgoers are living longer. And the churchgoers that get the biggest benefit are inner city minorities. Probably the most cost-effective public health intervention for inner city kids is get them involved with temple, mosque, or a church.
Wow. I mean, we have 90-year-olds that are still driving themselves to our church. And I think it's so cute. But I look at my dad. He was always sad when he would come to California because we didn't have the same kind of, our family wasn't there and the community he's used to wasn't there. But he loves it here because every Sunday he goes to church without fail, rain, sleet, or snow. And he has his people and he has his coffee hour after with everybody. So they go to church, they pray, they do their thing, and then they all have chats after and spend some time. So I think it's a lot of, it gives you hope. It refreshes your soul. And yeah, there's connection to be made there with people who are of like mind and like thoughts.
Maria, everybody's obsessed with AI and the promise to make our life better, or somehow revolutionize medicine or fold proteins different so we live longer. And meanwhile, we forget to look backwards. We forget to look at the wisdom of our grandparents who would metabolize, in many cases, thousands or tens of thousands of observed human experience. And there's a lot of wisdom in that experience that we're just not going to get it with ChatGPT. And we should be listening to it. And that's kind of my mission right now. And not only listen to it, put the evidence behind it.
So this new book, I have all your Blue Zone books. This is the newest, One Pot Meals. And I can't wait to make the crispy French fries. That was really exciting. I was like, the oven fries. But there's so many great recipes in here. And one thing that I really loved was also seeing the husband and wife who roll bread together.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cute.
By the way, making bread, you don't need to go to the gym when you make bread. I don't know if you've ever seen your grandma make bread, but it takes a half hour to knead that dough with some recipes. And, you end up huffing and puffing. You don't need to go to the gym. We forget the social, the stress-reducing, the physically active components of making bread as opposing to getting on Amazon and having it turn up at your front door.
Well, and also you're controlling the ingredients, which is super, super, super important. I think one of the things that's hard about eating out is you're getting crap oil, and that's not good. Do you believe in the whole idea of the olive oil being heated too high and it oxidizing and all the bad things that creates inflammation and all of that?
Well, yes. When you heat olive oil past the smoking point, it gets less healthy. I think this fanaticism with seed oil is wrong-minded. Seed oils, there are lots of seed oils that are just fine for you. There are really, really bad seed oils.
What are the differences? Can you tell us which are good and which are bad?
Highly processed seed oils are bad. There's healthy versions of avocado oil and avocado oil that's very bad for you. But the bigger point I'm trying to make here is we tend to demonize or heroize different foods and think that, okay, if I just get rid of this one food, I'm going to be fine. And it takes our eye off the ball. It's just like this red dye 25. Should we be eating red dye 25? No. But the real problem is we're eating too much meat, cheese, and eggs and ultra-processed food. So, these politicians say, I got the red dye out of your food system, which is 1% of the problem or less. So seed oils right now is a popular whipping boy. And it's a nuanced. Not all seed oils cause extra inflammation. And you can Google these things. That's not my expertise, but I do know the longest lived women in the world in Okinawa, Japan, use canola oil almost every day. They don't ladle it in, but they're using canola oil.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes. There's no olive trees in Okinawa. So the nutrition industry's attempts to identify individual nutrients, which marketers then try to sell us those individual nutrients. And the answer lies in the matrix. For example, when you take vitamin C, you've heard the term oxidation or antioxidants. Vitamin C is an antioxidant. But as soon as you put it in your mouth, let's say it's a supplement, tastes like orange, chew it up, oxidation's already started. That antioxidant's being oxidated. Then we swallow it. And further oxidation happens. By the time that supplement, that chewable supplements, gets through our stomach barrier into our blood, at the cellular level, there's no evidence it makes its way into the cell. If you eat a strawberry, which also has vitamin C, that vitamin C is encased in a protein matrix that makes it through the stomach blood barrier and has a real chance of it. We know it makes it to the cellular level. So the vitamin C in a strawberry is vastly different than the vitamin C in a supplement. All we're saying at the Blue Zones is eat the strawberry.
Wow. I did not know that either. I had a bunch of strawberries the other day. They were delicious. What made you want to turn all of these recipes into a cookbook now?
My day job since 2009, we've taken the insights of the Blue Zone, which has changed the environment, not trying to change people's behavior. And over 60 cities throughout the U.S. have hired us. I have a team now of 300 people, And we bring that team to those cities, and we help the city change the environment, change policy, restaurants, schools, workplaces, even individuals, so that they mindlessly eat better, move more, socialize more, and know and live their purpose. And according to Gallup, in every one of those cities, their BMI goes down and their reported happiness goes up. And the insurance companies pays our company to produce that healthcare cost savings and that increase in health. Well, I learned a while back that trying to articulate the Blue Zone diet of longevity is hard. There's no hard, fast rules. It's not a restrictive diet. It's not a weigh your figure diet. And it's based on incredibly delicious food. But as you pointed out before, Maria, it's the devil's in the details. So the Blue Zone Kitchen and the Blue Zone One Pot, the books you have there, both, by the way, were New York Times bestsellers. Blue Zone Kitchen was a #1 New York Times bestseller. Simply took the recipes that people like your grandma cooked, modified them a little bit, same ingredients, but so we know Americans would taste them, and made it really easy. And that way I had a simple answer. When people said, what's the Blue Zone diet? Here, look at the Blue Zone Kitchen. Or in this case, the Blue Zone One Pot, I realized that American moms don't have a lot of time, or at least they perceive they don't have a lot of time. So the idea behind the One Pot is that all of these recipes take about 20 minutes. They cost less than $2 or $3 a serving. And then I worked with Stanford. We analyzed 650,000 recipes. I isolated the ones with more than 105 star, and we actually captured the pattern that produces the most delicious recipes in America. And what you have in your hand there is a manual that captures, reverse engineers deliciousness, allows you to cook it at home in under 20 minutes for under $3, and almost guarantees your family will not only like it, but they'll live longer because of it.
Ooh, you little genius. That was sneaky. I like that. My mom and I wrote a cookbook years ago because she had mastered being, a Greek chef in a sense, and dealing with my dad, who was type 1 diabetic, making healthy, fast, delicious meals. So we know we don't have time, but now more than ever, we have less and less time. I wonder what the research says in terms of seasonal eating.
Well, ideally, if you can eat seasonally, it's better. But the reality is Americans don't eat seasonally. We go to Whole Food, and the same food is there, whether it's January or June. I mean, people like your dad, and by the way, my dad, same thing, big gardener.
Yep.
He's bringing in healthy vegetables from he lives in Minnesota, from July until October. Yeah, that's fantastic. But perfect is the enemy of good. And when you get too organic, sustainable, all these non-GMO, you start not only bamboozling people, but they give up. Mm-hmm. So what I've tried to do with the Blue Zone One Pot is you're an average American mom. You don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of money, and you got picky kids. This gives you sort of right down the strike zone of what's not only feasible for the average American mom, but also effectively delicious.
I am very excited. I flagged a few recipes that we're going to make this week ourselves. So Dan, thank you so much as always for helping us just kind of see that this can be a lot simpler than a lot of people make it. That's what I love about this show is we bring in people, and I always tell everyone discernment. Take what you love from somebody, and you don't have to listen to everything. There's something that somebody's going to share that might inspire you to do something better, but it is about just making better choices. That's why I end my show with be nice people, make good choices, and be present, because those are the gifts.
Well, you've captured it, Maria. If anybody has follow-up questions, my Instagram handle is @Dan Buettner, and I answer all my direct messages, and it's really a delight to talk to you, and hopefully one day we can do this sitting across the table.
Congrats on everything. It's so nice to have someone simplify and just say all this stuff is bullshit, because it's so overwhelming.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And, just based on that attitude, I'll see you when you're 100, I'm sure.
Yeah. Listen, I've beaten the odds. And these things have been my gifts, because I had a strong foundation health-wise with my mom and dad, the way we ate. And then I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit in life and was too busy to eat healthy. And so these were my gifts, because now I am very focused on how healthy I can be and making better choices every day. So,
well, the young body is forgiving, and it's never too late. None of these things are never too late. Every person listening here could live a longer, healthier life, and the gospel of Maria will get you there.
Thank you, Dan. Take care.
Hey, Heal Squad, we have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime, because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.